On the morning of May 5th, 2021, Stephen Hendrickson was driving his Tesla Model 3 to work. His car was in autopilot as he drove through Fontana, California. At about 2:30 a.m., an overturned semi-truck appeared in front of him. Moments later, he was killed. The 35-year-old left behind his wife and 2 kids. This crash is one of more than 1,000 that Tesla has submitted to federal regulators since 2021, the details of which have been hidden from the public. Video and data gathered from these crashes by the Wall Street Journal shows that Tesla's heavy reliance on cameras for its autopilot technology, which differs from the rest of the industry, is putting the public at risk.
Okay, hold on. I know it's hard to do this, okay? And I don't even like doing this. Maybe I'll change all my advice on this because fuck the world, okay? But don't be cringe on the other side, okay? Had to come back just to say the energy 10 minutes into this TAF episode is great. Destiny deadpanning while Adam mumble freestyle is awesome. Maybe that wasn't even a negative comment. Listen, all the people on the other side that are cringing and saying that like, oh, Adam is destroying Destiny, blah, 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 is cringe. But also like, I didn't destroy Adam either. It was a fun show. We went and we sat down and he is a funny goofer. Okay. And I could be a funny goofer. And it was just a fun show. Please don't read more into it than that. There's nothing more. It wasn't a battle of wits or who can mindfuck who or who secretly disgusted more. It was a goof and a fun show. That's it, okay? Nothing more than that. Make fun of anybody that says any differently. Don't fight on the other end of it. Make fun of people who argue differently, okay? Okay.
Since 2021, the details of which have been hidden from the public. Video and data gathered from these crashes by the Wall Street Journal shows that Tesla's heavy reliance on cameras for its autopilot technology, which differs from the rest of the industry, is putting the public at risk. Teslas operating in autopilot have been involved in hundreds of crashes across U.S. roads and highways since 2016. Over the years, Tesla CEO Elon Musk has maintained the technology is safe.
I do think that long-term it can reduce accidents by a factor of 10.
We're solving just a very important part of AI and one that can ultimately save millions of lives and prevent tens of millions of serious injuries.
The safety per mile is better than human driving.
Leading expert on autonomous driving, Missy Cummings, who's been critical of Tesla, warned of the risks of semi-autonomous vehicles in 2016.
There is no question that someone is going to die in this technology. The question is when.
Cummings has also worked as a safety advisor for the federal regulator, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA.
I am besieged with requests from families of people who have been killed in Tesla crashes. It's really tough to explain to them that, you know, this is the way the tech was designed.
Since 2021, NHTSA has launched a series of investigations into autopilot. They've released little information about them, and the cars remain on the road. Also in 2021, NHTSA ordered car makers to report all serious crashes involving semi-autonomous driving systems like Autopilot. But much of the data Tesla submitted has been hidden from public view because the company considers it proprietary. To unlock it, the journal gathered reports from individual states and matched them with the crash data Tesla submitted to NHTSA, and found that long-standing concerns about the autopilot technology are showing up on America's roads. Of the 1,000-plus crashes Tesla submitted so far, the journal pieced together 222 and found that 44 of them occurred when Teslas in autopilot veered suddenly. 31 occurred when a Tesla in autopilot failed to stop or yield for an obstacle in front of it. Orlando, Florida, a Model 3 drove into the back of a stopped police car that was attending to a disabled vehicle. Guadalupe County, Texas, a Model 3 plowed through an intersection and off the road. These failure to stop crashes, like the one that killed Stephen Hendrickson, account for the most serious injuries and deaths in the cases the journal unlocked.
I had to hang up the phone and look at both my kids as they're crying, and they're telling me to tell them it's not true, that their dad was in a car accident and he won't be coming home.
Tesla has said drivers operating in autopilot need to be ready to take control at all times. They say Stephen Hendrickson was warned to keep his hands on the wheel 19 times before he crashed, and that his car initiated braking before impact. But whether or not a driver is alert, it's important to know how autopilot performed. and that can only be seen through the large amounts of internal video and data Teslas record. The journal obtained video and partial data from the Hendrickson crash and asked experts to analyze it.
The kind of things that tend to go wrong with these systems are things like it was not trained on the pictures of an overturned double trailer. It just didn't know what it was. There were some lights there, but the lights were in unusual positions. A person would have clearly said something big is in the middle of the road. But the way machine learning works is it trains it on a bunch of examples. And if it encounters something it doesn't have a bunch of examples for, it may have no idea what's going on.
Experts say this illustrates a fundamental flaw in the Autopilot technology. It relies mainly on cameras or computer vision, with radar as a backup in some models.
Other driving assist cars, they have radar, computer vision, and LiDAR, laser ranging, that kind of helps you detect obstacles. But the LiDAR is very expensive.
Expensive sensors that are unnecessary. It's like having a whole bunch of expensive appendices.
Instead, Tesla's camera-based system relies on humans to train it on obstacles it may encounter.
Even though people think these cars are learning while they're driving, they're not. They're only learning at the rate that the companies are deciding to retrain the algorithms.
So I'm going to turn Autopilot on right now. I just pull my finger down like that one time. And as you can see on the screen, the visualizations have started.
John Bernal is a former Tesla employee who was fired in 2022 after posting videos of Autopilot failures. Tesla has not commented publicly on his dismissal.
So as we go through this downtown, you'll see a lot of cars being visualized, just, kind of on the side of the road being parked. You'll see pedestrians walking the sidewalk. We originally started at Tesla in August 2020 as a data annotation specialist. That role primarily relied on me taking image data and labeling it to train the technology on what a car was, what a pedestrian was, maybe an animal, a lane line, or what a red light was. That way with this...
Not trying to be a Tesla or Elon Musk defender here, but the difference between autopilot and full self-driving is very significant, and the rate of change of full self-driving is such that a video like this might be relevant for those instance/versions, but not relevant to the current versions. Okay, this is a 49-minute-old video. I don't know. Okay. Some people can say that, like, so for instance, like, you're warned to keep your hands on the wheel or whatever, and that's fine. But like, people are probably, when they're buying these cars and when they're operating the autopilot, they're not really operating it that way. The use case for a consumer is probably to operate it to where they're treating it like it's full autopilot, right? Or full self-driving, or whatever the fuck. Like, it's probably how people are behaving with it, and you have to be aware of how a consumer is interacting with the thing, right?
Image data training, the vehicle would then know how to operate in a real-world situation when that data came through the cameras and through the car's computer. The car has 8 cameras, specifically 3 right here in the front. And so as that truck just went across us, it's actually going through the plane of multiple different cameras. And one...
Maybe a stupid question, but if you have to keep your hands on the wheel, what's the point? Just drive. Anytime you're wondering why there's a rule or regulation and you don't understand it, the answer is probably liability. Because if they tell you that you need to keep your hands on the wheel and it's your responsibility, well, if the car crashes, it's not their fault, it's your fault.
Camera, it may have looked perfectly on the ground and centered, but another camera, it could have been 6 feet ahead or 6 feet behind, or maybe 5 feet floating in the air. And those are things I've noticed while labeling these image clips, is that these cameras are not calibrated properly. And so what looks true in one camera will not be true in another camera.
If the cameras aren't seeing the same thing, they can encounter significant challenges identifying obstacles. We can see this in an autopilot crash similar to Stephen Hendrickson's near Los Angeles in 2021. The journal obtained a rare set of raw data for the Tesla in this crash from an anonymous hacker. When a crashed pickup truck becomes visible on the road, one of the car's cameras sees it, but the other doesn't. Then, as the obstacle gets closer, the Tesla doesn't recognize it, and it crashes at full speed. Getting this degree of information off a Tesla after it crashes is nearly impossible for the average driver.
Like, she was putting him in hats and stuff at early ages, so he's like, chill with. He looks so sad though. Maybe he didn't get what he wanted for Christmas.
Tesla says they provide it, and it crashes at full speed. Getting this degree of information crash similar to Stephen Hendrickson's near Los Angeles in 2021. The journal obtained a rare set of raw data for the Tesla in this crash from an anonymous hacker. When a crashed pickup truck becomes visible on the road, one of the car's cameras sees it, but the other doesn't. Then, as the obstacle gets closer, the Tesla doesn't recognize it, and it crashes at full speed. Getting this degree of information off a Tesla after it crashes is...
I don't want to simp for Elon ever. And I'm not fully aware of... dude, I would have to qualify the fuck out of this. As for how much like LLMs or how much AI learns in a similar manner that humans do, people take issue with saying that the learning is similar. And there's a whole theory of mind that goes into how we learn differently and if we learn differently and if the differences are actually different or not. But I will say that people will say things like, well, the problem with AI is that AI can only avoid situations it's seen before, but like not new things. Depending on what you're talking about, that's true for humans as well. Like if we see something totally new, it's also going to be difficult for us to figure out how to engage with it. Usually we're relying on things we've seen in the past. Now, I'm not arguing with Chad on this one because I don't give a fuck because I've driven more than all of you motherfuckers.
Near Los Angeles.
The reason why it's so important to drive with your headlights on at night is because even if you're not aware of it, or even if it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, it is very, 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 very hard to see things on the road at night without light on them. Might not seem like it. And if you have your headlights on, you might think you might be totally okay. But I would actually be pretty surprised if an ordinary driver, if he was paying attention, if just based on the camera footage I'm seeing, if he could have been okay here. Maybe I'm misinterpreting the tone of the video because the tone of the video makes it sound like the camera should have obviously picked it up and avoided it, and a human obviously would have avoided it. But I don't know. This is, hold on, let me.
The journal obtained a rare set of raw data for the Tesla in this crash from an anonymous hacker. When a crashed pickup truck becomes...
It crashed at full speed and a human would have at least slowed down. Maybe at the very end here, maybe, but...
visible on the road.
I don't know if a human driver is seeing this at all. And by this point here, bro, you're like seconds away from hitting it.
The car's cameras sees it, but the other doesn't. Then, as the obstacle gets closer...
And then at this point, it's like, LiDAR would have seen it. Yeah, maybe other forms of detecting stuff would have. So you can talk about like improving, obviously the auto detection and then auto braking and everything. But I don't know if a human is avoiding this. Also, this is insane. What the fuck is happening here? That there was a full-on fucking accident with none of the lights of the vehicle on, nobody standing around with a flashlight, no emergency services have showed up. Like, how long has this been here?
But the other doesn't. Then, as the obstacle gets closer, the Tesla doesn't recognize it, and it crashes at full speed. Getting this degree of information off a Tesla after it crashes is nearly impossible for the average driver. Tesla says they provide drivers with hundreds of...
Weird that semi-truck headlights don't illuminate it either. So, I'm glad that you just bring this up, okay? Because we take everything for granted so much, okay? We take so many things for granted, all right? Signs on highways and the lights on the backs of cars and all the little dots on the road and the paint that we use to line the streets, all of these things are regulated and designed to be reflective. Like light works on these really well and it reflects it. It's not that light just naturally illuminates things so much that we can see everything. It's that a lot of the stuff that we drive with and drive, on, this is not normal. These aren't normal, I don't even think this is just normal white paint. And these reflectors on the road, like all of these things are designed to be super reflective, right?
Set of raw data for the Tesla.
Cars in the back are designed to be like reflective,
this crash
right?
From an anonymous hacker.
But the
when a crashed pickup truck becomes visible on
the bottom of a car is not. And
on the road.
If this is just laying here, even with this truck's lights right here, the chances of you seeing this are slim to none. You'll also know this if you're driving at night in the Midwest, and I'm sure there are other driving examples that I'm not familiar with firsthand, but it is very, very, very hard to see deer but it is very easy to see a deer when they look at you. And sometimes you can be driving and even be paying attention. Maybe you think you see something and then, whoa, shit, it looks at you. And then when the reflection in the eyes pops up, now you see it like super hardcore. And the eyes looking at you and the reflection of the deer eyes in your headlights is a million times more noticeable than just, than like the body of like an animal that doesn't reflect light very well. Yeah.
One of the car's cameras sees it, but the other doesn't. Then, as the obstacle gets closer, the Tesla doesn't recognize.
I am shocked here. It would surprise me if like the state or city or whatever doesn't have some degree of liability or culpability here, because this is a serious crash. There must have been emergency services or somebody called here. Something must, I'm so curious what the end result was of who was ultimately held liable financially for this death here. If there was some kind of like suit against the state or the city. This is crazy that this is just in the fucking road at night. Was it recent? My guess is it wasn't, because there's no people here. There's no lights blinking. There's not like, usually something, if it was super recent, would be here. This must be, my guess is hours old, but that seems so impossible. Like, I don't know.
Recognize it, and it crashes at full speed. Getting this degree of information off a Tesla after it crashes is nearly impossible for the average driver. Tesla says they provide drivers with hundreds of data points with granularity down to the millisecond in a user-friendly format. But that information doesn't show the exact decisions.
Wait, there are people, but they fled when the car approached. You can see them run. Oh, wait, can you? Hold on.
But the other doesn't. Then, as the obstacle gets closer,
Oh, pedestrian. Was there a person over there?
Tesla doesn't recognize it, and it crashes at full speed.
Oh, I can't tell, actually. I'm not sure.
Obstacle.
Is there like a news article about this? Or I wonder if it identified a person moving or going to run or not. Maybe, I don't know.
Tesla doesn't recognize it, and it crashes at full speed.
That was the other video. I'd be referring to the previous video.
In one camera,
It can encounter significant challenges identifying obstacles.
Jump back to 249.
We can see this in an when a Tesla in Autopilot failed to stop or yield for an obstacle in front of it.
Oh yeah, this is a totally different video. Okay.
User-friendly format. But that information...
You're not factoring in that cameras see things differently than the human eye. There was a Waymo crash here in Phoenix that killed a lady, and the road looked way darker on the Waymo camera. Cameras do see things differently than the human eye. That's true. And the human eye, like in some ways, will have better resolution. In some ways, we might have worse resolution. I don't mean like in the 1080p sense. I just mean in terms of like the things that we see and what we can pay attention to. I'm just saying that at night, as a rule of thumb, it is very, 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 very hard to see things that aren't meant to be lit or reflective, that are in a road, that are on the road, that are not like that shouldn't be there. That can be very, very, very hard to see. You need like I would probably say an inhuman or an unrealistic level of attention. Like even if you were driving at 55 or 60, I don't know if you could dodge every type of obstacle like that unless you were literally like eyes glued to the road, like 100% attention, like turn the radio down as you're driving the whole time. It's just very, very, very hard to see certain objects like that.
Doesn't show the exact decisions Autopilot made. Those details need to be extracted from the car's internal computer.
A Tesla is pretty much a computer on wheels.
I mean, that's like every car, right? I mean, what?
Work on salvage Teslas, usually in accidents, wrecks. I've seen a lot of videos where it's captured a lot of the drivers being reckless. And I've seen videos where it gives you that question mark of like, how did that happen? And it makes you curious, like, was it the driver or was it the autopilot?
Oh, now we're on the baseless speculation part of the video. Okay. Isn't it deceptive to call it autopilot and cost cut to the bare minimum camera tech with no radar sensors? I mean, I would say so. I feel like it should just be, but he probably doesn't want to call it what the other shit is. And what it sounds like is it just sounds like a sophisticated version, or not even a sophisticated version. I'm sorry. It just sounds like lane assist with braking assistance or auto distance. I wish I could remember what it's called. I've only driven one car like this before. It was that Volvo when we were going up skiing, and it had like a lane assist, and it had a I don't know what they called it, but it would automatically brake to maintain distance. And control your speed for the car in front of you. Like that's what it would do, which sounds basically like what adaptive cruise control. Yeah, it sounds like that's basically what the Tesla does.
The video only tells part of the story.
That's why I was saying before, calling it autopilot, but then having the car say, keep your hands on the wheel, keep your hands on the wheel, keep your hands, sounds like customers are probably going to engage with it like they would expecting it to be an autopilot thing, right? That'd be my guess. I'm gonna Red Bull, hold on.
The data on the car's computer gives a fuller picture.
The computers, they all report data and link to Tesla mothership. And we have the...
This is the topic that keeps coming up. Isn't the overarching... Is it overarching or overarching? I think it's... Isn't the issue, the problem in the U.S. with a lack of consumer protection against such marketing? Maybe, yeah. I don't know how they're allowed to market it like this. I'm not sure. I'm sure that must have been challenged in court somewhere, I would guess. But at Destiny, you cannot visually inspect camera data to understand what the computer can see, especially a YouTube video of the video. Just because something is dark on your screen doesn't mean the data isn't there. All the chatters talking about the camera being dark know nothing about cameras. That is actually completely true. There is, but the explanation for that is complicated. But yes, actually cameras can capture really high amounts of dynamic range that might not actually show up on the screen, might not even show up on the camera screen. But I think I was just talking about in general seeing things at night. But yeah. Destiny, regarding consumer protections, people confuse full self-driving and typical assisted driving. Even people who own the cars are confused by the difference, and Tesla probably doesn't want to aggressively clarify the difference because it sells cars. Yeah, I agree. But anytime you call something autopilot, I'm going to assume it drives itself. Like my assumption, if you say my car is autopilot, I'm assuming it can go from like one parking spot to the next. Like it can, like I can set it from my home to work and it could just do the whole journey. That would be my assumption in hearing it. I mean, like obviously as a reasonable person that has an understanding of the technology, I'd assume it probably can't do that yet. But just in hearing the term, that would be my assumption. The video said that the data specifically was obtained by a hacker. It showed all the data. I'm talking about visual data, not just, I'm just saying that, just trust me on this one, okay?
Computer.
Diaz sends Autopilot computers he doesn't need across the country to a hacker who then extracts the information. Janelle Hendrickson has not been able to get data from her husband's car. Her lawyers requested it over a year ago. Tesla says they're in the process of gathering it.
It's actually been really difficult to get any information about this. We know that Tesla themselves has all the video and all the information, but they will not share it.
One thing that's not reflected in the car.
Somebody else has different footage. Oof, that's brutal, dude. I'm so curious what was this? Like, how is this just sitting here? Apparently there's a guy behind the truck with a flashlight. If you read below. Did you mean to say flashlight? The truck was seen by both the radar and also could be clearly observed by the narrow camera from quite a distance away. Pictures spaced 1 second apart. In fact, it was when I reviewed the narrow cam footage, I saw there's a guy with a flashlight behind the truck. I hope they were not hurt and ran away as fast as they could. Footage is pretty interesting to apply current and ends to. And I hope I can talk someone into cooperating on this part to see HW3 detection. There's supposed to be different types of detecting stuff. Neural net, gotcha.
Car's data is the driver's confidence in the technology.
He trusted that Autopilot, obviously, with his life. He trusted it with my kids' lives. He said that it let him be a little bit less worried when he was driving so much. He'd leave about 3 a.m. to get to work by 6 all over SoCal.
If the cars do a pretty good job, not perfect, but pretty good,
Wait, what was this?
To get to work, worried when he was driving so much. He'd leave about 3 a.m. to get to
Love coming down the hill before 2:30 a.m. with just about no one
work
most days.
by 6 all over SoCal.
if the cars do a pretty good job, not perfect, but pretty good.
People are calling this guy retarded, but like if you use a thing and it's fucked and it works for a long time, like people will continue to use the thing. This is just ordinary consumer behavior, and every single consumer will behave this way. Like if there's a thing and it works, even if it's not supposed to, people will use it this way. And then when it doesn't work or when it breaks, people will get upset. That's just like, that's super ordinary consumer behavior. Like that's, you have to plan around that. Like you have to design around that.
Good. We develop a false sense of trust in them. And this overconfidence it's both coming from the levers of the tech, but it's also coming from the top down.
The Model S and Model X at this point can drive autonomously with greater safety than a person.
We've gone over this multiple times. Like, are we sure we have the right sensor suite? Should we add anything more? No.
The car currently drives me around Austin most of the time with no interventions.
The Department of Justice is investigating Tesla for its marketing of Autopilot. Tesla disputes claims they misled the public about the car's capabilities. Janelle Hendrickson's case against Tesla is set to go to trial in 2025.
People are still going to buy Tesla. They're still going to support Elon Musk. Doesn't matter how many accidents there are. But at least understand your car and understand your car's capability before you just put your entire life behind that.
Computer vision is such a deeply flawed technology, and we're not doing enough to determine how to fix its gaps and how to make it recognize objects. I look into my crystal ball, what do I see coming? I see that having the car do most of the driving for you and requiring you to pay attention to make sure nothing bad happens, I don't think this is going to be a long-term technology that we're going to keep in the cars.
We'll get there eventually.
On 1,100 acres in the middle of the Arizona desert.
No one cares. Oh no.
Is the future of the auto industry autonomous? Are these things really going to be a reality?
A Tesla car next year will probably be 90% capable of autopilot. So 90% of your miles could be on auto. For sure highway travel. So we're probably only a month away from having autonomous driving, at least for highways and for relatively simple roads. My guess for when we'll have full autonomy is about 3 years.
3 years?
Approximately 3 years.
If you think about fully autonomous vehicles, which have passed through regulatory approvals, have passed through in-city driving and traffic conditions, how far do you think from a time frame perspective we are for that becoming reality?
Particularly highways that are that have barriers, so that you don't have pedestrians. That's also relatively easy, and like a Model S and Model X at this point can drive autonomously with greater safety than a person right now.
Yeah. My point is, when does it get to be where you don't need to be sitting behind a vehicle? I can have my 75-year-old mother who doesn't speak any English or doesn't drive be able to be transported from point A to point B by just sitting in a car by herself and being taken.
I think we're basically less than 2 years away from complete autonomy. I think we're still on track for being able to go cross country from LA to New York by the end of the year, fully autonomous.
Okay, so a car, by the end of the year, you're saying someone's going to sit in a Tesla without touching the steering wheel, tap in New York, off it goes.
Yeah.
Won't have to ever touch the wheel by the end of 2017.
Yeah, essentially November or December of this year, we should be able to go from, all the way from a parking lot in California to a parking lot in New York, no controls touched at any point during the entire journey.
We'll see this also with self-driving. I think probably by end of next year, self-driving will encompass essentially all modes of driving and be at least 100 to 200% safer than a person by the end of next year. We're talking maybe 18 months from now.
3 steps to self-driving. There's being feature complete, then there's being feature complete to the degree that where we think that the person in the car does not need to pay attention, and then there's being at a reliability level where we've also convinced regulators that is true.
So the fact that a human may, some percent of the population may exhibit a vigilance decrement will not affect the overall statistics numbers of safety.
No, in fact, I think it will become very, very quickly, maybe even towards the end of this year, but I'd be shocked if it's not next year at the latest, that having a human intervene will decrease safety. So there's 3 levels. We expect to be feature complete in self-driving this year, and we expect to be confident enough from our standpoint to say that we think people do not need to touch the wheel, look out of the window sometime probably around, second quarter of next year. And then we start to expect to get regulatory approval, at least in some jurisdictions, for that towards the end of next year. We're going to do the robotaxi thing too. Only criticism, and it's a fair one, and sometimes I'm not on time, but I get it done. The fundamental message that consumers should be taking today is that it's financially insane to buy anything other than a Tesla. We're extremely confident of achieving full autonomy
He meant the stock,
and
guys.
releasing it to the Tesla customer base next year.
And we are discussing level 5 autonomy, so really full autonomy.
Based on your current understanding, how hard do you think this full self-driving problem, when do you think Tesla will solve level 4 FSD?
I mean, it's looking quite likely that it will be next year.
How hard is it as a problem to solve? Because you've made predictions in the past about autonomy. Some of those haven't come to fruition at the same time. Has your understanding of the problem of autonomy changed over the last few years?
Yes. I would say that self-driving is one of those things where you think you're getting there, but then you end up asymptoting. Your progress is initially linear and then looks logarithmic and sort of tapers off. Now at this point, I think we are no longer trapped in a local maximum, and it appears, my best guess is that we will get there this year.
I think Tesla will have sort of a ChatGPT moment. Maybe if not this year, I'd say no later than next year.
Wait, say that again. I'm sorry. You're going to have a
sort of ChatGPT moment.
Oh, you will. In terms of suddenly it will.
Yeah, suddenly 3 million cars will be able to drive themselves with no one.
We'll move from supervised full self-driving to unsupervised full self-driving, where the car, you could fall asleep and wake up at your destination.